They present themselves as the ultimate ambassadors, the first family of the Little People community, the Johnstons. For years, we have watched them on our screens, navigating a world built for average-sized people with grit, determination, and a camera crew in tow. They attend the conferences, they shake hands, they wear the lanyards. To the casual viewer, they are the gold standard of representation, a wholesome unit proving that size doesn't define capability. But what if I told you that the smiling faces on the red carpet hide a much darker reality? What if I told you that the very community they claim to represent doesn't just dislike them, but actively resents them? We have been digging through the noise, listening to the whispers in the forums, and analyzing the shift in public opinion, and the truth is shocking. The Johnstons are not seen as leaders by everyone. To a growing faction of their peers, they are seen as outcasts. They are viewed not as heroes, but as obstacles. We are pulling back the curtain on the secret animosity facing this family, and exposing why many believe they are selling a dangerous lie for a TLC paycheck. Before we expose the cracks in their empire, make sure you are subscribed to the 7 Little Couple channel. We are the only ones brave enough to say what everyone else is only thinking. Hit that like button right now if you want the truth about reality TV, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. You do not want to miss what is coming next. To understand the hate, we first have to understand the myth. When the Johnstons first burst onto the scene, they were a breath of fresh air. In a media landscape that often treated dwarfism as a punchline or a medical curiosity, here was a family that was unapologetically normal. Trent and Amber pitched themselves as the gritty, do-it-yourself counter-narrative to other shows like Little People, Big World. They weren't living on a sprawling farm with unlimited resources. They were fixing up a fixer-upper. They were dealing with rebellious teenagers. They were budgeting. For the first few seasons, they were the perfect role models. They did the heavy lifting, literally and figuratively, to educate the average-sized world. We saw them advocating for their children in schools. We saw them holding seminars. We saw them participating in Little People of America events, seemingly integrated and beloved. They built a brand on resilience. The message was clear. We can do anything you can do, just a little differently. And for a long time, that message worked. It resonated. It made them stars. It gave them a platform that most advocacy groups could only dream of. But fame is a double-edged sword, and as the seasons wore on, the shiny veneer began to chip. The very things that made them famous, their toughness, their strict parenting, their refusal to accept help, started to look less like resilience and more like rigidity. And this is where the resentment begins to fester. You see, in the wider world of dwarfism advocacy, there is a delicate balance between showing capability and acknowledging reality. The Johnstons have bet their entire livelihood on the former, pushing the narrative that with enough willpower, physical limitations cease to exist. But for many looking on from the outside, specifically those living with the same conditions, this isn't just annoying, it is insulting. We have to talk about the concept of selling out. This is the first major pillar of the case against the Johnstons. There is a long-standing debate within the community about the ethics of reality television. For decades, Little People were put on display in sideshows and circuses. While TLC isn't a circus tent, critics argue it is just a modern, high-definition version of the same thing. By putting their lives, and more importantly, the lives of their children, on display for mass consumption, are the Johnstons educating the public, or are they turning their genetic condition into a spectacle for profit? This is the question that haunts the forums and the comment sections. Think about the structure of the show. It relies on drama. It relies on conflict. It relies on putting the family in situations where their height is the focal point of the struggle. Every time Trent tries to lift something too heavy, every time they film a medical procedure, every time they zoom in on the modifications, or lack thereof, in their home, they are commodifying their struggle. Sources and voices within the advocacy space have long argued that true acceptance comes when dwarfism is incidental to the story, not the entire plot. But for the Johnstons, dwarfism is the product, and business is booming. This commercialization of their identity creates a rift. There are families out there struggling to get medical insurance coverage for necessary surgeries. There are little people facing workplace discrimination who can't get a job. And then they turn on the TV and see the Johnstons, living in a massive home, driving nice cars, and taking vacations, all paid for by performing their lives for an audience. It breeds jealousy, certainly, but it also breeds a sense of betrayal. The argument is that the Johnstons have become caricatures. They are playing a part. They have become the TV Little People, disconnected from the everyday struggles of the community they claim to speak for. They are no longer relatable, they are a brand. And when you become a brand, you lose your humanity in the eyes of your peers. But the resentment goes deeper than just money. It goes to the very core of their philosophy. This brings us to the second and perhaps most damaging reason for the secret hatred: the toxic positivity of Trent Johnston. Trent brands himself as a tough guy. He is the patriarch who doesn't believe in excuses. His motto is essentially, suck it up and get it done. On the surface, this sounds inspiring. It's the American way. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But inside the community, this attitude is viewed by many as dangerous and exclusionary. Achondroplasia and other forms of dwarfism come with significant physical complications: spinal stenosis, joint pain, sleep apnea, bowing legs. These are real, painful medical realities. Not everyone can push through. Not everyone can lift heavy furniture or renovate a house without debilitating consequences. When Trent goes on television and acts as if asking for help is a sign of weakness, he sets an impossible standard. He is inadvertently telling the world that if a little person can't do what he does, they just aren't trying hard enough. Imagine being a young person with dwarfism, watching this show. You are in pain. You need a step stool. You need accommodation at school. And then you see Trent Johnston on TV mocking the idea of modifications, insisting that his kids function in an average-sized world without help. It invalidates their pain. It suggests that their need for assistance is a character flaw rather than a physical necessity. This super-crip narrative, the idea that a disabled person must overcome their disability to be worthy of respect, is something disability advocates have fought against for decades. And here are the Johnstons, broadcasting it to millions of people every week. There are whispers that this specific attitude has caused friction at real-world events. While the cameras show smiling faces at the conferences, the reality is likely far more awkward. Imagine the tension. You have families there who are fighting for accessibility rights, fighting for ramps, fighting for lower counters. And then you have the reality TV stars who built a fortune telling the world that they don't need any of that. It undermines the movement. It tells the average-sized society, see, they don't need accommodations. Look at the Johnstons, they are fine. It gives society a pass to ignore the needs of others. That is why they are resented. That is why they are seen as frauds. They are selling a version of reality that only works if you have a TLC production budget and a script. We also have to look at the children. The exploitation of the Johnston kids is a major point of contention. In the early seasons, it was cute, but as they have grown into adults, the control Amber and Trent exert over them has sparked outrage, not just from fans, but from observers within the community who see a pattern of infantilization. The community knows how hard it is to be taken seriously as an adult when you are small. You have to fight twice as hard for respect. You have to fight to be seen as independent. And yet, what do we see on the show? We see Trent and Amber meddling in their adult children's relationships. We see them controlling their career choices. We see them practically forbidding them from moving out or forcing them back home. This reinforces the worst stereotype of all, that little people are perpetual children who need to be managed. By refusing to let their children launch, by keeping them under their thumb for the sake of the show's content, they are damaging the public perception of adult little people everywhere. They are making it look like independence is impossible. Critics argue that if they truly cared about the community, they would empower their children to leave the nest, to be autonomous, to live lives off camera. But they don't. Because if the kids leave, the show ends, and if the show ends, the money stops. So they keep them close, they keep them dependent, and they broadcast this dysfunction to the world. It is a betrayal of the very independence they claim to value. As we dig deeper into this, we have to look at the online discourse. If you go to the message boards, if you look at the threads on Reddit and other discussion platforms, the tone has shifted dramatically over the last few years. It used to be supported. Now it is under scrutiny. Viewers are starting to see through the cracks. They are noticing the inconsistent messaging. They are noticing the hypocrisy. One particular area of focus is the way the family interacts with other little people who are not in their immediate circle. Have you noticed that on the show, their circle is very tight? They rarely bring in outside voices that challenge their perspective. When they do attend LPA conferences, it is filmed as a highlight reel of their popularity. But we never see the deep, difficult conversations. We never see the debates. We never hear from the families who disagree with Trent's tough love approach. The show is curated to protect their image as the leaders of the pack. But the silence from the rest of the leadership community is deafening. If they were truly the beloved ambassadors they claim to be, wouldn't we see more collaboration? Wouldn't we see them lifting up other advocates? Instead, the Johnstons remain on an island, a very wealthy, very televised island. This isolation is telling. It suggests that the gap between the Johnstons and the average little person is widening. While the Johnstons are worried about camera angles and plot lines, the rest of the community is worried about healthcare and access. The Johnstons have become the elite, detached from the grassroots. And in a community that relies so heavily on solidarity and shared experience, that detachment is fatal to their reputation. They are no longer one of us. They are them. Let's pause for a moment and consider the psychological toll this takes. Imagine being Jonah, or Anna, or Elizabeth. You are growing up not just with the pressure of your physical condition, but with the pressure of maintaining your parents' brand. You are aware that millions of people are judging you. You are aware that your parents' standing in the community depends on your performance. If you fail, if you struggle, if you admit that you are in pain, you aren't just letting yourself down, you are damaging the franchise. This pressure cooker environment is exactly what critics point to when they call the family frauds. A real advocate would prioritize the mental health of the child over the ratings of the season finale. But time and time again, we see the children's struggles exploited for a cliffhanger. Anna's behavioral issues? Content. Jonah's academic struggles? Content. Elizabeth's heartbreak? Content. Nothing is sacred. Everything is for sale. And for a community that fights so hard for dignity, seeing a family strip away their own dignity for entertainment value is heartbreaking. It is seen as a mockery of the privacy that so many little people cherish. When you are stared at in public every day of your life, privacy becomes a luxury. The Johnstons have voluntarily given that up, and in doing so, they have invited the world to stare even harder. This sets the stage for the ultimate conflict. The Johnstons are riding high right now. The show is still on the air. The checks are still clearing. But the foundation is rotting. The respect they crave, the legacy they think they are building, it is all an illusion. The people they think they are leading are actually looking at them with a mixture of pity and disdain. They are kings of a kingdom that doesn't want them. And this brings us to the whispers, the rumors, the reports that are starting to bubble up from the underground. We are entering a new phase of the Johnston saga, one where the carefully curated image is about to be shattered by the reality of public opinion. There are theories circulating that the reason we don't see more authentic interactions with the wider community on the show is because the wider community has quietly blacklisted them. That people simply do not want to be associated with the circus. They don't want to sign the release forms. They don't want to be part of the Trent and Amber show. If this theory is true, it changes everything. It means the Johnstons aren't ambassadors. They are pariahs. It means that when the cameras stop rolling, they are alone. And that is a terrifying prospect. To have millions of fans, but no real peers. To be loved by strangers, but disliked by your own neighbors. As we prepare to move into the second half of this investigation, we need to talk about the specific instances that have fueled this fire. We are going to look at the specific moments where the mask slipped, where Trent's arrogance alienated viewers, where Amber's controlling nature crossed the line. And we are going to discuss the insider theories that suggest a massive reckoning is coming for the family. The internet is undefeated, and the collective memory of the viewers is long. The files are being opened, the receipts are being checked. But before we get to the leaked theories and the anonymous outrage, ask yourself this. Do you look at the Johnstons and see a loving family? Or do you see a corporation? Do you see advocacy? Or do you see advertising? The answer to that question determines which side of the line you stand on. And trust me, the line is being drawn in the sand right now. The illusion of the happy, perfect little family is the product. But the consumer is getting smarter. The audience is waking up. And the community that the Johnstons used as a stepping stone to fame is getting ready to speak out. Now we enter the most disturbing chapter of this saga. This is where the official narrative ends and the underground reality begins. We have been monitoring the back channels. We have been scouring the deep archives of private forums and closed social media groups dedicated to dwarfism advocacy and support. What we found there isn't just criticism, it is an organized, simmering rejection of the Johnston family empire. While TLC broadcasts a polished version of their lives, there is a shadow conversation happening, a whisper network among little people who are tired of being defined by Trent and Amber. We have uncovered what appears to be a growing movement within the LPA and other advocacy groups that actively dislikes what this family represents. These are not public tweets. These are raw, unfiltered sentiments shared in safe spaces where people feel free to speak the truth without fear of being attacked by the Johnstons' army of fans. And the consensus? The Johnstons are dangerous. Let's look at the leaked sentiments that paint a devastating picture. According to anonymous sources within these online communities, the Johnstons are frequently referred to as the Stepford family of the little people world. Too perfect, too rehearsed, and ultimately. One particularly scathing post from a private discussion board, which we will treat as an insider report, allegedly describes the family as a living caricature. The user wrote, "The Johnstons are a caricature. They make us look like a reality TV trope. They are performing a version of dwarfism that appeals to average-sized people, not a version that reflects our actual lives. They are the court jesters for an audience that wants to feel good about themselves for watching the little people. It's not a representation. It's a minstrel show." This sentiment is explosive. It suggests that the Johnstons are not empowering their community, but rather dancing for the entertainment of the masses. The theory here is that they have curated a specific personality, the wholesome, gritty, country-living family, because that is what sells ad space, not because it is authentic. The community sees through the act. They see the producers pulling the strings. They see the manufactured plot lines. And they feel that every time Trent does a silly stunt, or Amber stirs up drama for the cameras, it sets the public perception of dwarfism back by decades. But the anger goes deeper than just image. It gets physical. Another prevailing theory circulating in these private groups focuses on the medical danger of Trent's philosophy. We found discussions where users expressed genuine fear about the impact Trent is having on parents of little people. One insider allegedly posted, "Trent's tough guy act is damaging. Not all of us can just push through the pain. They set an unrealistic and harmful standard. I have parents of newly diagnosed children asking me why their kid can't do what the Johnston kids do. I have to explain that Trent is encouraging reckless behavior that leads to spinal surgeries later in life. He is risking his children's mobility for a plotline." This is a chilling accusation. It frames Trent not as a strict father, but as a negligent one. The insiders argue that by ignoring the very real limitations of achondroplasia, limitations that often require surgeries, mobility aids, and pain management, Trent is promoting a fantasy. He is selling the idea that disability is just a mindset. But for the people living with chronic pain in these forms, disability is a biological reality. They resent him for making it look easy. They resent him for making them feel lazy because they need a scooter or a step stool while he stubbornly refuses help. The insider perspective is that the Johnstons are winning the sprint, but losing the marathon, sacrificing their long-term health for short-term fame. And then there is the money. You cannot discuss the resentment without discussing the financial disparity. A third thread of conversation we uncovered involves the accusation of selling out. One anonymous user summed it up with brutal efficiency. They sold out the entire community for a TLC paycheck. They have the resources to help so many people, but they only help themselves. They have become the elites, looking down on the rest of us from their renovated mansion. They don't show up for the hard fights. They only show up for the photo ops. This reinforces the theory of isolation. The Johnstons are viewed as having extracted value from their community without giving anything back. They used their identity to get rich, but now that they are rich, they are disconnected from the struggles of the average little person who can't afford a custom-modified car or a sprawling estate. The wealth gap creates an empathy gap. The insiders believe the Johnstons have forgotten where they came from. There is also a fascinating, darker theory regarding their daughter, Anna. Within the community forums, Anna is often seen as the truth teller, the scapegoat who exposes the family's dysfunction simply by existing. Insider reports suggest that many in the dwarfism community are Team Anna and view Amber's treatment of her not just as bad parenting, but as a specific type of internalized ableism. The theory goes that Amber sees too much of herself in Anna, the struggles, the difficulties, and punishes her for it, while favoring the children who fit the perfect mold. The online community has rallied around Anna in secret, viewing her as a hostage in her own home. When Anna acts out, the public sees a rebellious teen, but the community sees a young woman reacting to a toxic environment. They believe the day Anna writes a tell-all book is the day the Johnston Empire finally crumbles. So, where does this leave us? If we connect the dots between the public persona and the private resentment, a clear picture emerges. The Johnstons are isolated figures. The grand conclusion to this investigation is that they are living in a gilded cage. We are witnessing the slow-motion collapse of their credibility. Position the Johnstons in your mind right now. They're at the peak of their fame. They have the ratings. They have the money. But look closely at the edges of the frame. They are alone. The community they claim to champion is turning its back on them. At the conferences, they are the celebrities, sure, but are they the friends? Are they the trusted confidants? Or are they the people everyone whispers about when they leave the room? The tragic irony of the 7 Little Johnstons is that in their desperate quest to prove they fit in with the average-sized world, they have alienated the little people's world. They have tried so hard to be normal that they have rejected the unique culture and solidarity of their own people. They are kings of their own little castle in rural Georgia, but in the wider world of dwarfism advocacy, they are seen as nothing more than sellouts. While the Johnstons count their TV money, they have lost something far more important: the respect of their peers. You can buy a new car, you can buy a bigger house, you can buy a pool, but you cannot buy respect. And once you lose the trust of your community, you rarely get it back. The insiders know the truth. The forums have the receipts. And now, you know it too. The smiles are for the cameras. The grit is for the show. But the silence from the community? That is real. As the seasons continue, watch them closely. Watch the eyes of the other people in the background at events. Watch the interactions that feel just a little too stiff. Watch the desperation in Trent and Amber to control the narrative. You are watching a family fighting a war on 2 fronts, one against the critics of the world, and one against the very people they call their own. And it is a war they are losing. They may have built an empire, but it is built on sand. And as the waves of truth start to crash against the shore, as the anonymous voices get louder and the leaks become a flood, that empire is going to wash away. The Johnstons wanted to be the face of the community. Well, they got their wish. But the community is looking at that face, and they don't like what they see. This is the reality of reality TV. It chews you up, spits you out, and leaves you with a bank account full of cash and a life full of empty relationships. The Johnstons are frauds not because they aren't little people, but because they have forgotten what it means to be small in a big world. It means sticking together. And the Johnstons stand alone. If you found this deep dive into the dark side of the Johnston family compelling, you need to smash that like button right now. The algorithm tries to hide the truth, but with your help, we can expose the reality behind the reality shows. Share this video with every 7 Little Johnstons fan you know. Make them see the truth. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel. We are investigating the roll-offs next, and the secrets we have dug up on that farm will blow your mind. Do not miss it. I'm signing off, but the investigation never sleeps. Thanks for watching.